Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. If you haven't noticed by now, Rogue Trader is filled with fascinating different archetypes, and one of them is Arch-Militant. This option rewards you for using a variety of different attack options. Honestly, at first I wasn't a fan of this class at all and didn't really get it. Playing around with Ulfar completely changed my mind, and now I cannot wait to take Argenta down this path in a full playthrough. Let's dive into all the mechanics, and hopefully by the end, you'll be a fan as well. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more CRPG related content. The characteristics for this archetype are agility, ballistic skill, strength, toughness, and weapon skill. I would say you should focus on ballistic skill and agility because I think Arch-Militant is a better option for ranged characters. The reason for this is some ranged weapons will provide you with an ability that hits an area but is also very effective against single targets. Bolter's burst attack is an example of this. The area attack melee weapons provide won't deal additional damage to one target, so oftentimes you'll switch back and forth between different attack options just to get more of the archetype buff and not because it actually serves you. Assassin is a better bet for melee focused damage dealers in my personal opinion. The skills for this archetype are Awareness, Carouse, Demolition, Athletics, and Medikai. Demolition is a required skill because there are a ton of traps in the game. Somebody has to discover those traps, so awareness is very critical as well. The main feature of this archetype is right tool for the job, and it rewards you for switching between different attacks. These attacks can be a single shot, single melee attack, area melee attack, area shot, or burst shot. Every time you use an attack that was different from the previous one, you get a stack of this buff, and it provides a +5 bonus to weapon and ballistic skill. If you have 4 more stacks, then you'll deal additional damage equal to half your weapon or ballistic skill bonus, whichever one is higher. So obviously, this class lends itself very well towards characters focused on consistently dealing damage. At level 4, you get the ultimate ability, Steady Superiority. Until the end of combat, you can make one additional attack each turn, and the first attack each turn costs 0 action points. This is fantastic, but keep in mind, each character can only use one heroic act during combat. The marksman option is really good as well, so you always have to weigh which one makes more sense. Steady superiority might be better if you believe the fight will still carry on for some time, whereas military excellence is the better option if you can potentially flat out end the fight. The Desperate Measures version of this ability causes you to suffer a -30 penalty to toughness until the end of combat and you start bleeding. Neither of these impact your damage, so sometimes this might be a good option. At level 12, you get to pick your first of 2 upgrades from a list of 4. The first time you reach 0 wounds while under this effect, you'll restore 20% of your maximum wounds and lose this effect. This can be useful if you are playing on a higher difficulty and find this character going down all the time, but otherwise I would skip it. Until the end of combat, every attack grants a stacking 2% bonus to critical hit chance. Yeah, without question, I think this is a second upgrade you should take for obvious reasons. Until the end of combat, your attacks don't spend movement points, and each attack grants a stacking 5% bonus to dodge for 1 round. This option isn't without merit since tanks could really benefit, but I don't like that the bonus only lasts for 1 round, so I would skip it. Finally, you can use heroic acts from both Arch-Militant and either the warrior or marksman archetype in the same fight. I haven't reviewed the mechanics for all the other classes, but I am pretty sure Arch-Militant is the only one that can potentially use 2 heroic acts in one combat, which is bananas. Also, to be clear, warrior and marksman arguably have the 2 best heroic acts in the game. So yeah, this upgrade is absolutely a must-have and the first one you should pick up. At level 5, you get 1 additional action point. Obviously, this is a significant boost to your action economy. At level 2, you can start choosing 3 abilities from a list of 6. Devastating Attack is triggered when you successfully hit an enemy and forces them to pass a toughness test with a penalty equal to twice your ballistic or weapon skill bonus, whichever one is higher. If the enemy fails, then they'll suffer a negative effect depending on the damage type. Impact damage knocks the target prone for 1 round, piercing or rending damage will inflict bleeding and slowed until the end of combat, and energy along with all other damage types will inflict blinded. Attacks that combine several types of damage will benefit from each additional effect. This is interesting, but I think you have better options. Reckless Rush causes you to gain movement points equal to 3 plus your agility bonus. Your stacks of right tool for the job are doubled until the end of your turn, but you lose all the stacks that were added at the end of your turn. The bonus movement points are negligible, but doubling your RTJ stacks could potentially be very beneficial. This is interesting, but I think there are a couple of options I like more, so I skip this. Next on the list is Wildfire, which causes your next attack to cost 0 action points. It will not count towards the attack limit this turn, and it will grant you a stack of right tool for the job. This costs 3 action points, but that amount is reduced for every 4 stacks of right tool for the job you have. Getting 4 more stacks of your main buff isn't difficult at all, so you should be able to keep the cost for this ability low. Definitely pick it up. Cautious Approach lasts until the end of combat, or until this ability is used again, or until you use Confident Approach. This ability changes the bonuses for RTJ, and instead you'll gain a 5% bonus to dodge and parry for every stack. If you have 4 more stacks, you'll remove all slowed, blinded, bleeding, burning, and toxin effects, as well as becoming immune to them along with stun and prone. Enemies love to throw stun grenades at you, and Drakari love inflicting bleed, so this is truly a massive increase to your survivability. This is great for characters like Ulfar, who are focused on damage, but might also serve as your tank. Confident Approach lasts until the end of combat, or until this ability is used again, or until you use Cautious Approach. This ability changes the bonuses for RTJ, and instead you'll gain a 5% bonus to dodge reduction and parry reduction, while also ignoring 5% of enemy cover for every stack. All of your attacks are critical hits, but your crit damage has a percentage penalty equal to 50 minus half of your critical hit chance. If you have 4 more stacks of RTJ, your attacks always deal maximum damage as long as this effect is active. This is a monster boost to your overall damage. Cover is an issue throughout the game, and Xenos love using dodge to render your attacks useless. Weapon and ballistic skills play a big role in critical hit chance, so boosting them will help ensure you do more critical hit damage. Great stuff all the way around. Finally, Kick lets you make a melee attack dealing damage equal to your toughness plus your strength bonus. This attack does not count towards the attack limit per turn, cannot be parried, and will push your target 2 cells away. If you are a melee character, this basically gives you a free attack that will probably do decent damage, so it's worth picking up. Some ranged options cannot be used when an enemy is within melee distance, so this is a useful way to create space, but Arch-Militant has a talent which lets you use two-handed ranged weapons while in melee range, and I think it renders this attack significantly less useful for ranged characters. Starting at level 3, you will begin choosing talents. You can select 7 out of a list of 26. The first list of talents comes from your archetype, while there's a second list of general talents that all characters can choose from. I would strongly recommend in this screen, you strictly focus on archetype talents. You get 4 opportunities to choose talents only from the general list, and that's when you should select some of them. Starting from the top, Exploit Weakness is triggered when you attack targets whose armor has been reduced and allows you to deal 10% more damage. If their deflection has been reduced by effects from your allies, you do an additional +2 damage. There should absolutely be someone on your team responsible for debuffing enemies, so this should be a constant damage increase. Pick it up. Always Ready allows you to begin combat with 2 stacks of RTJ. If you are built for damage, you should be doing 2 or even 3 attacks per turn regularly. Therefore, the bonus stack's high, and I don't think this is necessary. Broad Expertise gives you a bonus to weapon skill equal to twice your ballistic skill bonus, and vice versa. Unless you are building up both characteristics equally, which I don't recommend, skip this. Bit by Bit gives you a 5% bonus to critical damage for every stack of RTJ. This bonus is kept even when you use Cautious or Confident Approach, and absolutely you should pick this up. It'll help to ensure you do fantastic damage even when using Cautious Approach. Dependable gives you a 3% bonus to armor for every stack of RTJ, and this bonus is kept regardless of which approach type you use. If the character is also serving as a tank, such as Ulfar for example, this option is very useful. Otherwise, skip it. Preferred Targets provides an additional 10% critical hit chance against targets that have had their dodge reduced by your allies. If their parry has been reduced, you'll deal an additional 20% critical damage. Again, somebody should be debuffing regularly, so this talent is a no-brainer. Right Method for the Job gives you a stacking 10% bonus to critical hit chance until the end of your turn for every stack of RTJ you gain. I am just not a big fan of bonuses that only last for 1 turn. Skip this. Versatility triggers when you kill an enemy with a melee attack and makes all your ranged attacks this turn cost 1 action point less or vice versa. This does not stack. If you are switching between attacks often, this is a must-have, but frankly, I almost never do, so I skip this. Blood Haze is triggered when you kill an enemy with a melee attack and provides a percentage bonus to dodge equal to 10 plus your agility bonus for 1 round. This is great for a melee character who also has a high dodge rating, like Marazai, even though he cannot take this talent. Ingenious is triggered when you force enemies to make a resistance test and cause them to take a penalty towards any resistance test equal to 10 plus twice your agility bonus until the end of combat. If you use an ability that forces enemies to pass a test and have Psyker or Navigator allies who can take advantage of the penalty, this is worth taking. Close quarters training allows you to use two-handed ranged weapons within melee range with a -10 penalty to ballistic skill. For a character like Ulfar, who is tanking, this talent is a must-have. For a character like Argenta, she isn't tanking and has abilities that let her move away from melee combat, so I don't recommend this. Heavy Gunner causes your heavy weapon attacks to cost 1 less action point. Obviously, if you are using heavy weapons, this talent is a must-have. Focal Point gives you a 20% damage boost against enemies that have a priority target. If someone on your team is serving as a tank, this should be the first talent you select. Otherwise, you should still pick it up, but it's more of a mid-level priority. Awaiting Orders is triggered when an ally uses a single target ability on you, and it grants that ally 1 additional action point. No, providing action points is the domain of other archetypes. You should be focused on your own survivability or damage. Contempt for the Weak gives you a 50% damage boost against stunned, prone, or blinded enemies. If your allies have a way to consistently inflict those statuses on enemies, this is a no-brainer. Discipline grants you a stack of RTJ whenever an ally gives you an extra turn. My party runs with 2 officers who are giving Argenta extra turns left and right, so this makes a lot of sense for me. If you don't use Officer Heavy, or you don't focus those extra turns on the Arch-Militant, then you should skip this. Shoot on the Hands causes your ranged area and burst attacks to inflict a -20 penalty to weapon skill on enemies until the end of combat. This doesn't stack, and half the time you will face enemies who don't use weapon skill, so I would skip this. Dismantle applies to any of your area attacks and reduces the deflection of all enemies hit by -3, and their armor is reduced by 10% until the end of combat. Personally, I prefer to let allies handle debuffing and focus your talents here on damage, but if you use area attacks often, this is something to consider. Distract causes all of your burst and melee area attacks to reduce the dodge of enemies hit by 15% until the end of combat. As I have mentioned before, many late game enemies use dodge as a way to mitigate your damage. 15% is a considerable amount, so honestly, I would take this. Accustomed to Glory is triggered whenever someone in your party uses a heroic act or desperate measure and provides you with a +2 bonus to damage until the end of combat. This will be triggered every fight, so it's almost a flat damage bonus, but I would still skip it because some of the other talents are more impactful. Martial Art forces targets of Kick to pass a toughness resistance test with a penalty equal to twice your strength bonus, or they fall prone for 1 round. This makes Kick even more impactful, so if you use it on a regular basis, definitely pick it up. Flash Fire reduces the cost of Wildfire by 1 action point for every 3 stacks of RTJ instead of 4. Definitely pick this up, as you'll want to use Wildfire all the time. Survivor is triggered when using Cautious Approach and gives you temporary wounds equal to 10% of your maximum wounds. This also happens at the start of every turn while under the Cautious effect. If you are using this character to tank, then this is a strong option. Calm and Steady is triggered when you use Confident Approach and allows you to keep half of the usual bonuses from RTJ. Absolutely, the bonuses are worth it, so go ahead and pick this up. Breaking Attack causes Devastating Attack to also reduce the target's armor by 15% and their toughness by 10 until the end of combat. Yeah, this increases the effectiveness of that attack significantly, so if you use it regularly, definitely pick this up. Me personally, of course, I skip Devastating Attack, so I don't pick this up either. All Out allows you to use Reckless Rush for 0 action points as long as you have stacks of RTJ. I still don't like that ability, so I skip this talent. That's all the information I have regarding Arch-Militant mechanics. Again, if you have any questions or feedback about this video, please leave me a comment below. Hope all of you enjoyed this video. Take care!